Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Family Reflections. My name is Keddy. I'm your host. This episode was supposed to air today. We're recording it today. We're going to give you something else this week. This is the week of the end of May. It's kind of crazy how the year is going by already, right? But in here with me, on the call, I have a friend of mine that goes back with me a long way before I had all this beard, before a lot of things have gone on. We have Jonathan Jacobs. He is a creator, videographer, entrepreneur. He's Johnny, he's Johnny to me. So this is going to be a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to this. So Johnny, you can go ahead and introduce yourself to the viewers and listeners. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, first and foremost, gotta say thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate talking to I Know Pictures today. And I gotta say, we know each other for a minute, but my facial hair is still the same since high school. So I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what happened to me, bro, but like send some of that my way because I'm trying to fill this in right here. You know what I mean?
Man, it's exactly the same for real. Yeah.
But yeah, man, introduce myself. I mean, like we were kind of chatting before, like I don't really know exactly what the title is, but people most often know me right now for using a camera, you know what I mean? So either photography, videography, like people kind of know me as like being the guy who's got the camera, knows what to do with it, that kind of thing. So I guess like cameraman you can roll with if you want to.
Yeah, man. And that's what you've been for a while, man. I remember when we were in college, you were definitely already doing videography, already doing photography and growing in both aspects. Where are you right now? Let's talk about that. Where are you right now?
Well, we're coming to you live from Rome, Italy right now. It's about 12:28 a.m. But we're making it work. Different international time zones out here. But yeah, we're on the road right now. So like actually we just came about, how long was the trip out here? It was like a 9-hour train ride from Cannes. So we were out in the Cannes Film Festival most recently, shooting with some great people like the Revolve brand. So we were out there with Sierra. We were out there with Letitia Wright, which you guys know from Black Panther. A bunch of people, Olivia Culpo, it was just a good time altogether. But like, yeah, that's kind of like the world that we're in right now.
Oh yeah, listen, man, and I have to tell you how proud of you I am, man. I'm definitely a fan. I've been liking, I've been seeing the videos, I've been seeing the reels. And guys, if you're watching this, you've actually seen some of those videos, some of those pictures. You saw them at the top of the episode, and I don't know how much permission I had to get to post those or, okay. So if I'm good, you've seen those, you've seen some of those. And that was Johnny. That was Johnny and Nisha, Nisha being Johnny's wife. They're a power couple here doing great things. And, I'm excited for this conversation, man. So tell us about what's it been like? How was the film festival? How's Europe been?
Well, honestly, man, it's been a wild ride for sure. So like for sure, like now we're like shooting out in yachts and Cannes and all that type of stuff, but it wasn't always like this, like I'm not trying to like be out here flexing, like this is just the way it always is.
Right.
So I guess like the most recent chapter of the story probably starts about a year ago. And I say most recent chapter because like, this is kind of like when most of these most recent exciting things have been happening. But as you know, since we go way back, like, we've been grinding away at this for years and years now. But,
absolutely.
But we'll talk about the most recent chapter because I know that's probably what a lot of people are interested in like hearing about right now. And it actually starts off kind of on a really somber note. So about a year ago, Nisha's dad actually passed away. So he had it was a brief but a very tough battle with cancer. If anybody's listening who's been through that with a family member, they know exactly what I'm talking about and like just how tough of a time that is. Like it's very strenuous, obviously on the person going through it, but on the families as well, just, like holding on to hope, trying to fight through things,
right.
Like everything like that. So, I mean, that's where we were at a year ago, just going through the highs and lows of that, just battling, right?
In the middle of a pandemic as well, right?
In the middle of a pandemic, which brought on its own challenges to that whole time as well, which we can get into later. But that's where we were at, and when that came to an end, unfortunately, number one priority was basically like, okay, like we need a mental break. You know, like we've been fighting a pandemic for the whole time, then losing a parent. You know,
Right.
it's just a tough time. You just can't like keep going. Like nothing happened. You know what I mean? So we're like, okay, you know what? We're gonna take a trip, book a trip, just to get out of the environment. We were in Alberta, Canada at the time. We decided that we were gonna go back to France, which is where we had our honeymoon actually back in 2018. So we were like, okay, let's book the trip. We go out there. And it was just supposed to be a getaway, you know, like we were just supposed to be relaxing, just trying to like get our mind off of things, trying to process some things, you know.
Right.
But essentially what happened was part of that trip was to purchase my wife a very particular handbag made by the designer Christian Dior.
Okay.
And so once that item was procured, much to my wife's delight, we heard that there was this thing called Paris Fashion Week going on, right? So like, if you don't know, like Paris Fashion Week is a really big deal. Basically like a bunch of celebs like come out, they come view like the next collection that's coming out for all these big brand names, right? So, I mean, like, it seems like it's like very strict to the fashion world or whatever, but we quickly started to realize that like fashion is like this incredible intersection of all types of artists and athletes and just like
and creatives and
yeah, like it's just like it's really interesting. We'll talk more about that, but just like it's like the height of creativity and done, especially since their items are so expensive, they can do it at the highest level because they got the budget to do it. So it's like a very interesting like little zone, right? But anyways, back to the main point here, like we were just happened to be in Paris when the fashion week was going on. So we're like, you know what, you got this new bag, you got this show that's going on by the designer of that bag, why don't we just go like, you know, poke around, see what's going on over there, whatever. So we pull up to the show. We actually had our little dog Theo, so I hope there's a little
shout out to Theo.
He'll be real mad if he's not in this episode. But we had a little dog out there, right? So basically the way it works is like there's a big courtyard just outside of like where, you know, like your typical little runway situation is, and anybody can kind of just wait out in the courtyard, and a lot of people do, and I mean like a lot of people, like fans, like people trying to see like who's in town, like that kind of thing, like people with cameras, paparazzi, and we quickly saw like it's not just like something light, you know, like
now just really quickly though, let me just jump in really quickly. In that moment, was it as packed as it would typically be? Because it is still the middle of the pandemic, right?
Oh, it's just like as the pandemic lockdowns and stuff are starting to come down, right?
Okay, all right.
So like, you know, like even now as we're talking like this, I mean, we had to wear masks like once we crossed into Italy, but in France we didn't have to wear masks. So, you know, like we're in this weird stage, and back then it was even more so just kind of like starting to come down, like, are we safe? Are we not safe? That kind of thing. But anyways, it was enough of a crowd that it was obvious to us that this was like a bigger deal than we even realized before, perhaps, right? So we were there, and it's just kind of exciting. Like we started looking around, and it's like, oh, like I know them. I know them. They're from our favorite Netflix show. Like what? What? Oh, that's a blogger I've been following for years. Like wow, like this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
So we're just kind of there, like taking it in, and it's like exciting. And then all of a sudden, this blogger influencer, really nice human being, Megan, comes, who Nisha's been following for a long time, comes directly up to Theo because it just so happens that she has a dog that looks exactly like Theo, right? So all of a sudden it's like this, like our world of like just being watchers, you know, like on this side of the screen, like, you know, following these people's lives and that sort of thing. All of a sudden we went into the screen, and that person was right in front of us and talking to us, and she's just like a nice person, like just right there, right? And so like I took some pictures and videos as this was happening, because she's like, oh, cute dog, I miss my dog so much, oh, he's so cute, like that kind of thing. I take some pictures or whatever. We post them up, and then later on she reshares it to her millions of followers, right? So it was kind of like a little like light bulb moment, like, okay, like, you know, we got a camera with us. We're not working at all. We're literally on vacation, like the hardest vacation possible, because we're actually trying to be away from work as hard as possible. Right. But we got the camera here, and it seems like, you know.
And guys, I should mention that Johnny always has a camera, like always. Oh, yeah. Johnny is a camera. All right.
Like for like legit, like I'm trying to get those Ray-Bans with the glass, like with the cameras in them. So it's like, oh, wow. Anyways, like we just realized like in that moment, like a really important principle, which is like, okay, like we have this opportunity to provide value to somebody else.
Mhm.
And it was immediately evident, right? Because she shared it, right? And it was like, this is like something that I can use. And so we started thinking like, okay, maybe like we'll bring the camera into a couple other shows. So again, just like a quick explainer for Paris Fashion Week, it's not just one designer, it's like several shows over the course, I think like 10 days, right? So like we have like maybe 3, 4 like major shows, more like there's other like smaller designers as well throughout the day. So you can go from one show to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, like over a week, you know, you can do that. So we happened to hop into the Dior show, which is at the beginning of the week. And then we were like, okay, like there's all these other shows that we should probably just check out. You know, so again, we were like, okay, like let's bring the camera. Maybe like we'll do a little something more intentional, right?
Now, another quick question. You know, I don't want to derail the story, but I'm thinking as a viewer or listener, people are thinking, okay, so I pull up. Is there like a whole bunch of security, like, oh, hey, no, you can't get too close, you know, that sort of thing going on?
Yes and no. So like there's a zone where you can't go any further. So like think about it like in stages, right? There's like the general population of Paris where things are just going on. Then there's this area where a crowd starts to gather because people are getting dropped off in their limos and stuff like that. And the people that are there because like they're wearing the clothes, right? So like they kind of do want to be seen in a way, right? They want to kind of have an entrance. It's also a community. Like that's the really cool thing about fashion because like a lot of the people there are just big fashion fans, right? So like they'll go like dressed up, right? You know what I mean? Like they're showing off like their style, like that kind of thing. So it's kind of like a community. So you just kind of do your walk through the community. And it's a lot of people who are just like all hype about the same thing. That's that next little zone, right? And then like basically there's another area that's officially called the courtyard. And like typically that's locked off to people who have passes, right? For the Dior show, I can send you some pictures, but it's like an elevated platform. Only passes can be there. And then there's the inside of the show, which is like completely locked down. There's only a certain number of seats. It's just like, you know, you got to be invited essentially from there.
So it's kind of like an onion, you know, like there's layers.
Exactly. It's got layers. And this is how it is at most of the shows. Some of them are a lot more strict to get in than others. I've been thrown onto the streets of Paris by security who were telling me that I was not where I was supposed to be. Multiple times happening in LA as well. So yeah, for sure. The viewers wondering like, is there security? For sure there is security, but you know, like there's also an understanding that people are going to come because they want to see what's going on, right? And that's part of the draw to this whole thing, right?
All right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So okay, so basically, you know, like that's the first show, and then with like going on, we're like, okay, let's try to do this again. So then we go out, and we get our camera again, and then we're like, okay, like we're gonna shoot some more, like shoot some pictures and stuff like that, post it up. All of a sudden, it happens again. So like the thing that was interesting is that you know these people are starting to see our stuff. And we're not the only camera there. Like that's the thing that we have to understand. Like there's maybe like hundreds for sure, perhaps thousands of other cameras that are just taking pictures at the same time. And for some reason, like our pictures are starting to get picked up. You know what I mean? Like people are just kind of like sifting through and they're like, okay, like that's the
for some reason. I have a couple of ideas what the reason might be. Come on now. Come on. You know
But like, I mean, but for some reason is important, right? Because like, even though like it's not about trying to be humble or anything like that. It's more about like we have to also reverse engineer our own success so that we understand it fully. You know what I mean? Okay. Because some things you just do like out of intuition. You know what I mean? But if you didn't know that was what you were doing, then like you won't be able to repeat it again. You know what I mean? Like, so it's important to like take a step back and say like, hey, why did this work? You know, like why is this something that people are looking at and trying to use? Like, why did this bring value to somebody else? Like, you got to take a second to pause and not just be like, hey, yay, we did it, we're hot, right. Like kind of thing, and be like, no, like, why did it work? Because I want to do more of that. You know, I want to like, because like anybody, I shouldn't say that. Not everybody can have like a viral hit, but it happens from time to time that you can get like those one hit wonders. You know what I mean? But that's not what we're trying to do. You know what I mean? We want to have repeated success. We want this to be a career. We want this to be something that we can build legacy on, you know, that kind of thing. Exactly. And in that case, that's why it's important that we actually like understand what we're doing, like even deeper, right? So anyways, like, so it happens again where we kind of get like reposted and like that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, like our mindset starts to shift a bit, right? So like we were actually supposed to go to south of France shortly after that, but we canceled those plans. We're like, you know what? We found something we can do. It's interesting. We're having fun. You know what I mean? We're having a good time. And so we decided, you know, we're gonna hit up a few more shows, right? And by the way, so like you were saying, like we also have a camera. We actually had 2 cameras. So now Nisha's in on the game. She's like, you know what, give me a camera. I'm gonna you know what I mean? You ain't the only one who can shoot out here.
Right.
So like, the night I would say that probably kind of blew up the most for us was the night that we went to Valentino. Now, this one is a really interesting show. So it's like, it's a lot
So
more.
this is another fashion show, yeah? Another.
So like we're still in Paris Fashion Week, still in the same week, maybe 1 or 2 days later after the Dior show. And we go to the shows by the designer Valentino. It's at nighttime. A lot more challenging because number one, for photographers, like you know, a lot of photographers will know, nighttime photography is tough, especially tough in the streets of Paris where they got like these ancient light posts that are illuminating the street, and that's all you got, you know. Right. So challenging in that way. It's challenging in the way that there's a ton of people there in a more condensed space. Like the Dior show is in a big park, like huge park. So there's space for people to walk around, doesn't feel too claustrophobic. This Valentino show is kind of the complete opposite. It's like right up against the street and in between 2 buildings. Like you got people literally like sardines, like that saying is as accurate as I can describe it. It's just everybody piled in there. So it was challenging for us. And I think like that also made it fun for us too. Cause like now all of a sudden it's like a game. It's like a sport, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like photography is like an art for sure. Yeah. Like it's an art form, but like now it's like a sport because all of a sudden like we got these challenges where you got to get the shot and there's like a time limit and like, you know.
Yeah, like, I mean, even in just the way you were just describing this, you're kind of breaking down your thought process, you know, some of the variables that you're considering. Okay, we have this space. What is the lighting? You know, all of these things that you're considering as you're going into this, right?
Yeah, so like it presents like this scenario that if you're into that kind of thing, like challenges and that kind of thing, like where you just want to get it done by any means necessary, then like it becomes a draw for you as well to do this more. So but anyways, we're at this Valentino show. And the other challenging thing is we don't know where the true entrance is, right? So like there's 2 possible ways that people can get into the show. And we have to figure out where all these like, you know, big names or whatever are going to come from. So we're in position because like I said, there's so many people, you can't just like run from one side to the other. Like you pick your spot, either it was the right spot or you're completely in the wrong spot. Right. So I'm sitting there looking, like you were just saying, like checking it out, like, okay, like let me scope this out. Okay, like, all right. If I was designing the show, I'd have them walk through this beautiful little path that they got set up. Okay, I see they got some lights in there. Maybe they're pointing in that direction. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go stand over here. And I'm chatting with Nisha. I'm like, you know, I think you should come stand over here with me because, like, let me tell you, you know, I'm a professional. Like, in like over here is the best place to be. She's like, you know, I don't know. Like someone's telling me, yeah, I'm gonna stay over on this side, right? So we decide, you know what? We got 2 cameras. Let's divide and conquer. We're just gonna get it done, right? So I go to my spot and I'm like posted up there. Literally, I like squeeze my way up against the fence. I'm like, excuse me, you know, that kind of thing. I'm up against the fence. Feel like I got a really good spot. And as soon as people start arriving, I realize I'm on completely the opposite side. And Nisha was actually the one who was right. Right. So she's like posted up completely on the other side. And it's like so tight, I can't even get to my phone to call her to figure out all this stuff or whatever. So basically by the end of the night, we meet back up again. I'm like, did you get anybody? Like, did you see anybody like cool or anything like that? And she's like, yeah, I think I got some people, right? And I started looking through our camera and I'm like, what? This is incredible. She's got like all these big names, like Dixie D'Amelio, like Giveon, like Olivia Culpo, like all these people, like tons and tons and tons. And I can like send you a bunch of these videos. Mm-hmm. But what was crazy is like from that night, we got so many views. Like the Dixie D'Amelio video alone did 2 million that night, like directly, like 2 million views, like in a more, because
on what platform?
This was on Instagram. So that's another kind of like point just for those who are nerding out about this stuff. Like that's on Instagram alone. But what happens is like our videos get ripped, obviously, and then they end up on TikTok and on fan accounts and all sorts of stuff. So it's way more than just the 2 mil, but that was directly our page, like that 2 mil, which kind of gives you like a sense of like how these people and their fans are, you know what I mean? They're getting views like crazy, you know what I mean? But anyways, like that night really was a big moment for us in that it just gave us so much exposure, right? So like some big things that happened, like for one, like we got to give a huge shout out to Olivia Couple, who we know super well now, but she was one of the first ones to not only like share our video, but like she added in like a little extra note to it, right? So she was like, yeah, I really love these guys' page, you know what I mean? Just posted like that. And so like all of a sudden, all these other people who follow her, who are looking for video, who are looking for like photos, that kind of thing, they start DMing us and they're like, hey, like, can we meet up? Hey, I'm in Paris. Like, hey, like, I'm going to be here at this time. Like, can we meet up? And like, that kind of just opens up like all these opportunities where it's like, wow, okay, like I didn't know this world even was like that, but all of a sudden now we're seeing a huge need where we found a place where we can provide value, and now we like tapped into this market that we weren't completely aware of before that, right? So like, I mean, that was like a big moment for us, but it wasn't all like easy. It's not like that's the way we tell the story when we got to go quick. But the other side of the story is that it doesn't always happen that people like see your stuff. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you got to hustle. You got to figure out like, how can you get this video to this person? Like, you know that it will provide value to them, but these people, like I said, 2 million views in one day. Imagine how many DMs they're getting, how many comments they're getting. Like, how are they sifting through all this stuff that they can, like, I mean, there's thousands of pictures and videos of them from that night alone that they would have to look through. So you got to hustle. You got to figure out like, who can I get this video to? Like, how can I connect with this person? You know, like you got to kind of put in that work to create the opportunity for them to see it. And then that kind of magical.
So it's kind of like you're marketing your content to the subject, basically.
Yeah, when you're in the hustle mode, like 100%, like that's what you got to do. And like, that's an important point that I want to make sure like creatives know, because like, I know it's frustrating nowadays, like in the social media age where it's like, I'm posting and my work isn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? So like, you know, you do your thing, you got everything all set up, you hit post, and then you're just kind of waiting back and you're like, all right, algorithm, do your thing. You know what I mean? It goes to the person who needs to see it. And like, it doesn't always work like that. Like, you know, you can have hits and you can have, sometimes, you know, the algorithm does work in your favor, but like, no matter what, you just got to do your thing to hustle and put it in front of the people who you want to see it. You know what I mean? Don't give up on it. Even if there's been videos where we're like, this is like such a great video. If it gets seen by the right person, it'd be great. And then they never see it. You know what I mean? It happens, you know, but like, just give up on it. If you like, whatever it is, maybe it's not like a celeb video or whatever, but like you got like a cooking channel and you're like, I want to get this to the right people, like go and like try to deliver it, hand deliver it to them. Even in this social media age, you know what I mean? Don't just feel like it's so disconnected. Like start DMing people like, hey, like I saw you like cooking, like check out my cooking video that you might enjoy. You know what I mean? Like you got to do that, like person to person marketing still, even in this digital age.
Yeah. So what I'm really ripping from what you're saying is, don't just use social media as media, but also use social media for social networking.
It's a social network. That's exactly what, like, that's the biggest thing of what it is. Like there are some good algorithms like going on now. Like I said, like, you know, like people are having like some crazy success on TikTok just from posting a video, no followers, and then gets picked up, you know, that kind of thing. It happens. But the real power is that you can DM, I don't know, who's somebody you've wanted to meet in your life?
Somebody I've wanted to meet, Chadwick Boseman.
Okay, Chadwick. Okay, so
I just pulled it up.
That's a tough one. A tough one to DM right now. There's other people.
Okay, actually, okay, let's pick another person. I'll say Michael B. Jordan.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Like Michael B. Jordan. Like right now, I can tell you that we're probably like one step removed from him. Like I know somebody who knows him really well. You know what I mean? But like you can DM somebody who's within his circle. You can DM directly. Like it's incredible. Like that you have that direct potential of a communication line there. You know, like before it wasn't like that. Like even not that long ago, you had to like hunt even just for emails, you know, for people, you know, you do like there's services and stuff. And you're like, let me find this person's email. I figure it out. You know what I mean? Like that's what you had to do. But now you can like, there's a direct channel there. But like the trick is like, if you're just asking like empty questions, or you're not really sure what you need from them or that kind of thing. Or even if you're going in with the mentality of like, I need something from you, you're probably not going to get a response. You know, you got to go in with the mentality of, you know, what can I provide somebody else that will bring them value? You know what I mean? Then you're gonna start getting some responses.
Yeah, and that's something that I've learned to be like a core principle of all marketing and all digital marketing in particular. You're leading with value, because people don't have time. Like unless your video, your content, whatever it is providing value, whether it be entertainment or learning or education or whatever it is in that split moment, unless you're providing that, people just keep scrolling, right? And so you have to add value across the board. Yeah.
100%. That's a big thing.
Yeah, man. So here's one question I have for you here. I have a couple, but one question to come out of the gate with is like, in that moment where, let's say, is it Valentino? Is that the name you said?
Yeah, Valentino, that was the bigger show. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to this Valentino show, and Nisha was in the right spot. She got some great content, and now some stuff is doing really well. You know, there's millions of views, and stuff is starting to pick up. In that moment, how are you wading your way through those waters? Because now there's just a lot of data coming to you, a lot of decisions that have to be made. You have to sift through a lot and decide, okay, what opportunities can't be missed here, you know, that sort of thing. What did you do in that moment?
I mean, that's a great question, to be honest, because like basically, you know, like you get 2 million views like in a night or whatever. You wake up the next morning, we look at each other, we're like, are we famous? Like, then like the easy like reality check is you go and you check your bank account and you're like, no, I'm not famous yet. there's no way I'm famous. Right. So like there's you start to see like the disconnect between views and like actually being able to do something with it, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, like I think I get exactly what you're saying, like kind of like what next, like how did you figure like where to go from there? The big thing for us was basically like figuring out what this world really was and like where our place was in it, mm-hmm. and doing so in a way that didn't limit anything. You know what I mean? Like, I think like a really big and important thing, like a lesson that we have to kind of put at the forefront is that when you don't know something, it's more important that you recognize that you don't know something, you know what I mean? Rather than trying to assume that you know it right away, because that's how you're gonna like limit your learning so much, you know what I mean? It's like picking up an instrument. Like the first time I picked up saxophone, if I was like, or bass or whatever, like, you know what I mean?
Right here.
Exactly. Like when you pick up an instrument for the first time, it's very humbling because like you can't just like fake it, you know what I mean? Like if you like are very like novice, like you never touched it before, like if you pick it up, you're going to be humbled really quick and be like, okay, like there's a lot that I need to learn. But in life, it's not always like that. A lot of times you can fake it, you know, and you can like kind of like act like you're taking shortcuts or whatever. So, I mean, like to not get too like into hypotheticals, the point I'm making is that like, as soon as like we came into the situation, we were really careful not to like go too fast and assume that like, okay, like we got this one video, now we know exactly what to do. No, it's like, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to take the next step, which is going to the next show. And then we're going to do it again. And then we're going to figure out like, okay, like what's the world, you know what I mean? Like that we can do here. So I guess to give like the viewers a bit more context, before this whole fashion week thing, before going overseas and that type of stuff, we were already running our own digital marketing company. And it was providing social media and content to more like local and regional clients, right? So like we had like tourism clients, we had like hospitality, hotels, the car dealerships, like that kind of thing, right? So we already had a business that we were running where we were creating content for people and people were paying us for that, right? So like we had already crossed that hurdle of understanding that people will pay for these types of services, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that was changing was really the clientele and the product a little bit, right? So like,
so you had the core principles in place. Yeah,
that's exactly it. So like we were fortunate enough that, you know, the way this opened up, like the timeline of us, like it really set us up and put us in a good place for this type of opportunity to come to us. You know what I mean? Like if this had happened before, like we were running that company, like before we had practiced creating these types of videos, that kind of thing, like nothing would have really come from it. You know what I mean? But it was just like this incredible moment when opportunity met the preparation, and all of a sudden, like it was able to take off from there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So basically, like we started going to the next fashion shows and stuff. But as I was saying, in the meantime, every time somebody's reposting us, every time we're getting our video to somebody where they can go and they can tag us and they give a shout outs, like that kind of thing, opportunities are starting to come to us where it's like, hey, like, what are your rates? You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like, hey, like, where are you going to be at this time? Because I got a project that you might be a good fit for, you know? Mm-hmm. So like, that's kind of where organically it started to develop into, you know? So it's like, okay, like we're shooting this stuff, but then on the back end, we're getting this business opportunity, which is the important kind of like the crossover, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
the,
you
that
go and we could
the connection.
follow celebrities around all day and get paid $0 for it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
But like that's not really what we're trying to do necessarily. A lot of these folks are really nice, which is cool. But like, you know, like this is a business, like we're trying to figure out how to have longevity, you know, like make this
Mhm,
work,
mhm.
you know, like all that kind of stuff. So it was important to kind of see those opportunities. Basically what happens is
I'm sorry. I think something happened to your audio. Did something die?
oh, okay. I don't know what happened. It's all good. Anyways, where did I leave off right there? Where was I?
You were speaking to the intersection of the business end and also connecting to the opportunity in that moment.
Yeah, exactly. So like basically like I was saying, like we started to get messages and like that kind of thing. And we would start to sift through them, right? And like it was like, okay, like basically from there it was figuring out now what was our purpose in
Mhm,
life, right?
mhm.
And like how did
It's
that
a big question.
purpose, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
Like literally, like what do we actually want to do? And like how do these opportunities align with what we want to do personally? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would help us determine, you know, what opportunities we would take versus what opportunities we wouldn't take. But another important thing that might make us a little bit unique is that we made the decision that we weren't going to limit our opportunities to a certain location. Basically, the reason why is that we decided that this was a good season for us. You know what I mean? Like this was a moment in our lives where we had to actually, you know, some would say take the leap, but it's just
Yeah.
like we just had to follow along the path that was really kind of like laid out in front of us. You know what I mean? And when we talk about like God opening doors for people, it's something that you can kind of feel like inherently, like when you see like that door kind of open up for you, where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, like this is, you know, there's a reason why this is happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
I've
don't
definitely felt that at different points in my life for sure.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can, it's something you feel like when that door opens up, you're like, okay, that door is open. So now God's not gonna push me through that door. You know what I mean? But I can take the steps to walk through it if I have the confidence and
Mhm. You know,
you know
I'm
what I
going
mean?
to start preaching on here if you keep going.
But anyways, you know what I mean? So like basically that's exactly what happened. People would start reaching out and then we would just decide we're gonna be wherever the opportunity is, we're gonna book a flight, we're gonna fly there, right?
Mhm.
And that's how we started to like compound these wins. Like on the other side though, like the opposite of being humble, we were winning continuously. Like our content was performing well. And that's a huge part of it as well. Like deliver your best work no matter what project you're working on, no matter how big you think it is, how small, deliver your best work, because if you start compounding wins, like all of a sudden like you know, the rewards that come back to you are just so much bigger. You know what I mean? Because
All
it's
right.
like, oh, they didn't just get that 1-2 million view video, you know, and they got another one, and they got another one, and they got another one. So it's like all of a sudden you can build your portfolio. And for us, it was in a matter of months, you know what I mean? To the point where it was like, oh, these guys are legit, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But that just comes from every time we would go out there, even though at that point we were getting paid, like I said, $0 to do any of this stuff. This is all out of our, like we were losing money literally because we were in a foreign country, like
Yeah.
shooting stuff, you know, it cost
With a
money.
foreign language as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like that hasn't been so much of a struggle. Like, you know, like one of the things that's pretty cool about being over this, like separate from the conversation. One of the cool things though is just like how easy it's been to connect with people from all around the world. You know what I mean? Like, fortunately, other people are easy with us to like try to speak English to us and stuff like that. So that part's been good. But all the same, like it was like a bit of a challenge to, not a challenge, but it was an investment on our part that we had to put our best work out, even without any guarantee that something was going to come back to us. You know what I mean? But once we planted those seeds, and we planted good seeds, and we did our best, and we stayed up late, and we made sure it got to the right people, and we hustled and all that type of stuff, all the stuff started to sprout up and grow, and it would come back to us in the form of opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how it happened. Like you started to win, and then you would get like all these opportunities. And then the other thing is like that's really important is we would start to then meet people, right? So it would go from that story I told you at the beginning where we're like on the other side of the fence, we're just like shooting, capturing people, whatever, to now we're like meeting up with people, we're working with them actually.
All right.
And the most important lesson I can like share with people with that is that you got to be a good person first and foremost. Like aside from what your work is, aside from, you know, like what your portfolio says, whatever, if people don't like your vibe, they're not going to work with you, like
Yeah.
100%. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like whatever you go out to do, like even if you're focused on like hustling and making your money and like building your business, whatever, don't go with that mentality. Go with the mentality that you're going to meet another human being and you
Exactly.
should be kind to them and you should like have a good rapport with them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and if you do that and like people vibe you out and you're like, okay, that's a good vibe, they'll invite you back. Like we've had people book us for another shoot before they've seen any content just because they're like, you guys are so sweet. Like when can we work together again? You know what I mean? Like, and that's a big thing, like a big realization that we've had is like just treat people well. That'll carry you further than anything else. You know what I mean? Like first and foremost, put that up at the top, you know?
Yeah, because one thing I was going to say earlier, and now you're kind of saying it for me as well, is in, building opportunities and, planting seeds and these things, sprouting and all of that, you're also building relationships.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So even more than opportunities, you're building relationships, which are so much more valuable than just an off chance opportunity. Right. And
Exactly.
so, and in order to build those relationships, you have to be, as you said, a good person. You have to be dope, be cool, be a nice person.
That
Yeah.
is what it is. Like we've joked with each other a lot. Like on our Instagram, it seems like we're catching Pokemon. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, like who do they catch most recently? That kind of thing. But like that's not how we want it to be. Like we were just trying to like jump from name to name because like when we do actually get the opportunity to like talk with these people and like kind of hear a little bit about like what like the cool thing is that we're catching them at these like moments. You know what I mean? So like Letitia, right, most recently in Cannes, right? This was her attending her first Cannes Film Festival ever, right? And she's been in like so many things that we love, like Black Mirror, obviously Black Panther, like so
Yeah.
many of these like these films and like works of art, that we've been following along. To see her journey, and then now she's at like this kind of pinnacle, you know what I mean, where she's at Cannes Film Festival about to debut her new film, and we get to have this moment with her. It's like really cool. So like now we've been like taking really like intentional steps to like pause, like cameras usually like this, like just take a minute, look at the person and be like how are you feeling right now? Like you're a Ken, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
and then just like chatting with them, and like it's like so dope because like all of a sudden like it's not just like photographer and celebrity, like this paparazzi relationship. It's like, two artists just in a room like taking in this moment.
Yeah.
And like when you're able to do that, like to be real, like you actually end up getting better photos, better videos as well. So like that moment that we caught with her actually got featured in British Vogue, right? And you can kind of see like the warmth like come through the images because she wasn't in there with some paparazzi. She was in
She feels, the vibe is there, right? Yeah.
same with us. Like her team was so dope. Like they made us feel like so welcome, like the whole time, like from the beginning, like just like in the way that we were talking beforehand, like to set it up, but also like while we were there, they were so excited for us and like all the things that have been happening with us. They knew what was going on in our lives. You know what I mean? Like, and like imagine like so much is going on in their lives, but they took the moment to kind of like process what was happening for us and present that to us as a celebration. You know what I mean? And even like the next day, like after we shot with her, ended up getting picked up by British Vogue, got published, and the whole big article and stuff. Her team was like, you guys gotta come to like our room or whatever, because we just want to like celebrate with you. We got it. We came into the room and her whole team got so hyped. They're like, oh, it was like a big celebration, like with friends, you know what I mean? Like we accomplished something. And like those are the moments that I think people don't necessarily understand that can happen. You know what I mean? It's not just a business, it's not just a photo, it's a moment that we're trying to capture. It's a story that we're trying to tell. You know what I mean? And I think like that's one of the other kind of inner like draws that we have to this is that we have those opportunities to tell these people's stories and like kind of get in a little deeper into these people's lives and connect with them on a deeper level. So like that's a deeper layer of what we're doing that we enjoy so much, and is another reason why we do it.
Okay. Yeah, very good. You're actually answering a lot of my questions in advance. But I want to talk about the dynamic of working with your spouse, right? Like, you guys, you went on vacation,
Make sure she got the noise canceling headphones on real quick.
Yeah, you went on vacation and you grabbed this opportunity. You guys are both really good. You're very passionate about what you're doing, right? And but how does this work with also being a couple, right? Because I'm sure at some point, you might have certain business ideas that might clash a little bit, or you might, have to take some time to find balance in between working and being together, disconnecting, and so on. What can you speak to that?
I mean, here's the thing.
Fight every day.
Oh, what you say?
Okay, we fight every day. So like this is, I mean, that's an important point. But let me start on my point first, and then I'll go to her point.
Mhm.
Okay, it's like it's a gift and a curse. So here's the thing: like most people, they go to work away from their family for what, like 8-9 hours per day, plus the
Right.
commute, whatever it is,
Right.
where they're separated from their spouse. You know what I mean? And you start to look at that, like even when we were deciding, even when I personally was deciding like what I wanted my life to look like, and you start to see that and you're like, man, like would I rather spend 8 hours in an office, or would I rather be with Nisha? And like, to be honest, like there's nobody else on this planet that I would rather spend that time with, you know.
Right.
Especially she's
Oh,
like
shucks.
she's kissing her teeth right now. I think she's half embarrassed and she's half
She's
half
blushing too. She's
gotta tell
blushing.
him, she's blushing, but she's also like telling the truth as well.
Tell the truth. You've been an AH.
Okay, so let me address the other side. So like,
projects the stress on me.
so mushiness aside,
Mhm.
it's also a curse because like we don't get to just be a spouse to each other. You know what I mean? We are co-workers in one of the most high stress environments like that's possible. You know what I mean? Like I know like people might like roll their eyes at that, but you got to understand, like even with the Letitia thing, like where it was an amazing like experience and everything, we had like maybe like 30 minutes like from the second that we like stepped foot into the hotel to when she had to go to
Mhm.
create an entire British Vogue article worthy photography session plus video. You know what I mean? So like yeah, it's like really high stress, and like you can't miss the shots because they're only happening once, and it's her first time in Cannes, and it's like nobody else is there. You're the only camera in the room. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot that's going on that can cause a lot of stress, right?
Yeah.
So like she was saying, like when you're under pressure like that, there's times when your communication is not as filled with love as your communication.
No, go get it right now.
Literally, like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's some of the things that you got to work through, because like you can't just like separate like, oh, like this is my wife, you know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna be like this way to her, or this is my husband, I'm just gonna be there for him when he's done with work, like, you know, like that kind of thing. It's not like this. Like we're working together.
Mhm.
And like the good thing is that we are both very much on the same page about our goals and like about doing this, and we both want it to turn out as good as possible. So there's a lot of forgiveness and joint understanding of your mission, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that allows us to work through a lot of things where it's like, okay, like I understand why that happened, I understand why you're stressed, I understand what you're trying to do, so let's just work through it and make it happen. But at the same time, like she's saying, like you know, like there are communication sides on the marriage side of things that we have to even still like work through.
It's
you know what I mean?
though. You're the only.
It's all your fault.
Yeah, I know. So yeah.
It's literally.
Welcome to marriage counseling with Keddy.
Okay, well, let's first have Johnny.
Yes.
And, I'm playing.
No, but no, it's real. Like, and
You
I
can
don't want
apologize.
this type of thing. Like, I actually don't. This is not something I want to hide from people at all. You know what I mean?
Mm.
This is legit. Like, working with your spouse is tough, and it's like you
But
have
we
to.
still love each other.
We love each other more than anything, and we have an incredible time, and we're in Rome right now, and we just came from Cannes, and we got our puppy here. You know, there's so many blessings like to this life, but there are things that you have to work through, and it's kind of puts, the nice thing is that like our relationship has always been built on pure honesty. Like we never been like the type to sweep something under the rug or just like, or like brush it off or anything like that, or like go to sleep angry. Like we don't do any of that stuff. Like partially because my wife will interrupt a video interview to let me know she's upset. So, and like, so, but it's the best thing, you know what I mean? Because I never am confused about where she's at. I know exactly when she's upset, and I know exactly the 10 minutes where she's not upset. You know? I'm just playing. But like, you know, like it's really important to have that level of open communication, because if you are like hiding things, or if you are offended by something that happened and like you don't bring it up, like it could be a disaster, because all of a sudden you're gonna be presenting your own film at Cannes and your wife hates you, like, because, and she never told you, you know what I mean? Like that's 100% what you don't want. So like in order to like make it work, you have to constantly be in communication, constantly work through whatever discrepancies come up, and most importantly, be united in your mission. If for a second you guys are going in different directions with your missions, it's not going to work. Like you're just going to eventually come apart, right? So luckily, like we have all those things. We've like, I mean, I met her when she was 19, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
We've like come up together, you know. So because of that, like we've been able to have a lot of those mission things develop at the same time, which makes that part of it a little bit easier. But yeah, the point is communicate, you'll be good, but there's definitely challenges.
No, but I think that answer goes to not just couples that work together, but also couples that are just together. You know, like being,
Exactly.
just being, first of all, communication,
Yeah.
and being singular in your mission, and, letting each other know when you're pissed, it's a
I feel
big
like it's
deal.
even more important for people who don't work together because like you're not seeing that person on the daily. So
Mm,
like you don't necessarily know everything that's what's happening with them. So like in that case, like I think communication is even more important. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like just
yeah,
like stay on the same page and everything. But
yeah.
you know, another thing that I've learned that applies both to our working relationship, but also to our romantic, like loving relationship as well. And this is a big one, is that you've got to start to identify your spouse's differences as assets instead of liabilities, right?
Mm,
So like when you first start a relationship, right? You're gonna start to notice that you're two different individuals. Like you do stuff differently. Maybe you put your toothbrush on the sink differently than the other person or whatever.
right.
You've got differences with one another. But a lot of times people have like there's a temptation to look at those differences as like, oh, what you're doing is bad, you know, because it's different from me. Or
Right.
the way you're doing that, the way you're processing that, the way that you're talking to that client, the way even you're shooting that video or whatever, it's bad because it's different from me. But the true strength of a relationship isn't that you have two people that all of a sudden are 100% the same mind, the same skills, the same abilities, everything. That no, it's that you got two distinct people with
Mhm.
their own strengths, right? So if you start to flip those, like I'll give you an example, like Nisha loves to talk, as you guys have heard. Right? And me, I'm kind of the opposite. Even though we're having this interview, the only reason I'm able to talk like this is because Keddy's my boy. We've been roommates, like I've known him for years, you know. But usually,
Yeah.
like I'm very, very reserved and quiet, right? So like there could be a temptation for me to be like, Nisha, just be quiet, man. Don't say anything. Like don't go up to that person. Like don't ask them for that, like that kind of thing.
Right.
There's that temptation inside of me to like think that way, but a large chunk of why things are happening for us is because she talks so much that these opportunities just start to come because like she's chatting with people and she's like, I'm just gonna go ask them if we can shoot this thing. And I'm
Oh
like, all
yeah.
right, don't do that, don't do that. And she's like, no, I'm just gonna do it. And then I'm like, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden, like we get another opportunity, or she's like DMing people, and like those are the things where it's like I have to like put that in my mind, like, okay, like she's different from you, but it's actually a huge asset to you because you don't have the strength. That's a weakness for you. So let her be great. You know what I mean? And vice versa, So I mean, I think that applies to other people too, not just in work, but also in their relationships. Like maybe one person is more in their feelings than the other person. But
Yeah.
like that's an asset as well, to be somebody who's filled with empathy. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that is a huge asset to have that not everybody has that skill set within them, so you have to recognize that thing. Or maybe somebody's more logical and you may think there's like such a jerk because like they don't cry for everything, right? But no, like that's another asset that somebody can have. So just being able to identify that, especially in your spouse, your partner, whatever, that's going to make your relationship so much stronger. And all of a sudden you're going to be this like dream team of all the right pieces that you can go out and you can accomplish anything.
All right. Of course. And I have more to say, but I wouldn't feel moving on from this question without opening the floor for Nisha as well to give some input. I don't know if she wants to, but is
You
she
listen to
there?
her?
Is she available?
I'm gonna be watching Stranger Things.
Okay, cool. But my thing is this, right? And just from the outside looking in, first of all, guys, Nisha is like the social equivalent of a nuclear bomb. Like Nisha just pulls people in. She's dynamic, she's energetic, she's extroverted, and she has great energy. Like the first time I ever met Nisha, she was like, "Yo, It was just great vibes, right? And so that combined with you're also very personable and also charismatic, but you're not as extroverted as she is, right? But
Yeah.
you're also like a marketing and like photography, videography genius, right? In my opinion, right? You know, I'm a fan out here. So so that combined with her, right? Combined with you guys being in the spaces that you're in, come on, man. You know what I mean? Come on, you have the sauce.
Like there's I mean, and the sauce, like this is really interesting concept, like in the innovation world. It's like basically where teams can get to a point where they don't have to communicate even anymore. They can almost just predict how the other person's going to move. So like think about like basketball. Like think about like the highest performing like NBA team, right? Like you don't have the opportunity to be like,
Boston
hey,
Celtics.
hey, Tatum, I'm gonna pass you the ball, and then you're gonna shoot it, and then the basketball's gonna go in or it's gonna rebound here. You don't have that opportunity to chat through everything. So the best teams have like develop this cohesion where they can just operate almost organically as in the same like organism, right? You know what I mean? And like that's kind of like the next level of like identifying those strengths and stuff where you just kind of flow through things now. Like you're in this flow state of like, okay, like boom, you got the sauce, you know what I mean? Because like you got this cohesion that's going on and now you can just go and do your thing, you know what I mean? But like that's like the next level that you get to. But that's another benefit, a huge benefit of working with your spouse, because like that's not a work relationship that we really had. Like we've had that from just being in love, like and just being with each other for over 8 years now,
Yeah.
and now like we can enter negotiation, like conversations and stuff, look at each other, know exactly what we need to say next. Like, like that's the beautiful thing. And another benefit of being in a married relationship and also a work relationship at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely agree with that. And the next thing for me is I don't want to pivot too harshly, and we're running out of time. Because guys, remember, these guys are in Rome right now. I am in Stoughton, Massachusetts. Right. So that means, right now it's approaching 1 a.m. or something on your end. So I don't want to dig in too hard because we could have a whole separate podcast with me and Johnny just talking technical stuff and talking, digital creation, right? So just before we head out the door, I wanted to pivot a little bit to what are you thinking right now in terms of the landscape with where social media is going, right? You guys are primarily based on Instagram.
That's a fun question.
From what I believe.
Yeah, for sure. So like, I've started to realize what happens is like you grow up with the platform, like probably usually around like high school and college, like where you get really comfortable there and then you just don't really leave. Right. That's why like all our parents are on Facebook, like they just kind of like chilled there, like, you know what I mean? And like now they're starting to trickle over to Instagram, like there's all this other stuff coming up. And so for us, even like we started to realize we're old because like even though we completely understand TikTok and like we understand some of like the newer platforms and ways of creation that are going on, we just haven't fully made the jump there yet. But it is something that's on not only on our radar, but like we're on TikTok every day. Like we understand like what's going on there. And when you talk about the landscape of social media, I mean, there's a big indicator there just in the form of like short form video, right? But that's not even what's coming. That's already here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like short form video has taken over, like as like data speeds, like you got Wi-Fi that's doing it, but also like with 5G networks and everything going on where you can watch videos like that all day long from anywhere, wherever you're at. Short form video is where it's at right now because people can do it. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. When we were in college, you know what I mean? Like you try to watch a video, pull a video in Meyer Hall, you'd be like
4 minutes long, 5 minutes. Yeah.
Chilling, like waiting for it to buffer, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But nowadays, like it's here, like where video is like really taking over. So I mean, like we could chat about that, but I feel like that's kind of a boring conversation because it's like it's already happened. I think what's more interesting is to look at where social media is going in terms of these networks and platforms as a whole, right? Because I think it's really interesting. Like right now, like you've got these big players like Instagram, even like TikTok now, where it's like one platform is supposed to hold all these different pockets of people, right? And it's interesting because like now that's why the algorithm is so important, because like I'm not trying to see the content even necessarily that you're trying to see, and we're pretty similar like in our interests and like stuff like that, you know, but your feed probably looks different from mine.
Right.
So the algorithm has started to create like, it's not just one Instagram anymore, right? It's like, you know, this is Keddy's Instagram, this is Jonathan's Instagram, this is Kay's TikTok, you know, like it's separated like that. But I'm really interested to see if now platforms themselves start to silo and break off, right? So instead of just like one general short form video service, you're starting to get something just for musicians. Like, is there going to be a platform that pops up that's just a musician's hangout spot, right? And this isn't like a brand new concept. Like we used to have this with forums, like way back in the day, you know what I mean? Like you'd go to like your forum, which was your corner of the internet, and you'd be looking at like, I used to be like a real nerd with like Android and Windows phones before. So we used to go on like XDA developers,
Right.
like figure out how to hack phones, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
basically Reddit, right? Like, yeah,
exactly.
like,
Right? Like you would go to like these different, like Reddit, where you got like different like subreddits and that kind of thing. Like I'm wondering like if that's where it's going to go with social media as well, where like I can go just to like my camera social media app or whatever on my phone, and I can communicate with people in that way that's just like siloed off completely, because now it's mixed, you know what I mean? Like if I go through my feed right now, I'm going to see a bunch of basketball, I'm going to see a bunch of F1, I'm going to see a bunch of like camera stuff, obviously, you know what I mean? But like it's not necessarily focused like in the way where, let's say like I really wanted to just look up camera stuff, it would be difficult for me to do that on Instagram because I'm gonna have to swipe past a bunch of stuff. You know, it's even just like a personal friend stuff, you know what I mean? So personally, I think the internet is starting to become more sectioned off, right? Like even think about it like this, like think about it like the streaming services, right? Before it was like, you know, are you going to cut the cable and go to Netflix, right? But now, like, how many streaming services do we have? Like there's so many, you know what I mean? So like, it's already happening where the internet's becoming more kind of like siloed off into like these different apps, you know?
As in, so basically somebody, playing off your point, I could see somebody saying, okay, for this streaming or for this genre, I'm only going to go to this streaming service, right? Because they do it better. I'm going to go to Peacock, and instead of Peacock, I'm going to go to Disney Plus because I want these kind of movies or something along those lines. And I can definitely agree with that, because I think the social media evolution in life is basically going through another stage now, right? Where you're coming from where Facebook was, I see Facebook as us trying to figure out how to do it. It's like, okay, what if we had social media? That's kind of where Facebook kind of came from. What if we had this, right? And then Instagram kind of went into, okay, what if we already have this, but we're gonna do it like this, right? And now TikTok is, you know, kind of the same vein, but to your point, I could see us now going into places where, okay, we already know how to do this, we've mastered doing this, now let's personalize it. And
well, you know, I think what happened is that we went from a place to connect with friends, right? 100% that was Facebook, because like you had to add somebody as your friend, which was a mutual connection, you know? So like when you added somebody as a friend on Facebook, not only were you seeing their stuff, but they were seeing your stuff as well. So that was that initial like, okay, this is a symbiotic kind of relationship between the two, where they're now both, they have access to each other, right? Then you move on to the next stage with Instagram, where it's one way, right? Now I can follow somebody, which means that I'm going to be following their stuff, but that doesn't mean that they're following me back, right? Now you're moving on to this other side of things, which is TikTok, where I open the app and I'm seeing stuff from people that I never heard of before, right? So like that was the interesting like kind of thing in terms of discovery, right? So that was the main thing. So like on Facebook, if somebody on your friends list didn't share something, you probably wouldn't see it, you know what I mean? Versus TikTok, you open it up, you're going to see something from everywhere, which is why a lot of things go viral, which is why you get those stories that we were talking about earlier, where people are just blowing up with 0 followers, you know what I mean? Which is interesting. But I guess what I'm referring to is more the intent, right? I think people are more intentional than an algorithm. right? And I'm sure people will argue with me on that for sure. Like, I feel like human beings still have choice, you know what I mean? Like maybe like I'm just like too deep in the matrix to realize that we don't have choice.
I don't know. There's some very philosophical arguments about whether we have free choice or not, but that's a whole
Yeah,
different
you know
thing.
what I mean? But I feel like we can still make choices about what we want to look at, which is why I think the future that's going to be successful is giving people the choice of like, okay, I want to look at this type of content today. I'm going to make the choice to click on the app or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's gonna lead to like some deeper relationship building as well. You know, like that's one of the things that I remember from back in the day, even on forums. Like you would have friends on forums because you would see them there often. You know, like versus like just like it randomly showing up because the algorithm chose to put it in your face. You know what I mean? It's like that choice of I want to be part of this community, right? So that's another reason why I think, or at least I hope, maybe it's a hope, you know, that they go that way a bit.
Okay. No, I agree with that, and I kind of hope it goes to in that direction as well. I think it's gonna be actually better for creators, right? Because right now, I think for creators, it's really like the algorithm is kind of running you in a way, because they're like, oh, you didn't post this week. It's looking really bad, bro. You know, I don't know if you're gonna, and but it's a mixed bag. I think it's a mixed bag because the algorithm is also working well for helping people see what they want, at least for the most part, right?
I'd say like the
But
algorithm works well for helping people see what they've chosen to see in the past. You know what I mean?
mhm.
It isn't necessarily predictive, but like I said, like I've got like friends who are kind of in the field. They'd be like, "Nah, you think you have more choice than you actually do." Like it's actually predicting what you're gonna want to watch next.
Yeah, because it's going. I think. Well, of course, I don't write these algorithms, right? But I feel like it's based on the probability of your past behavior, and now basically creating this predictive model of your behavior from your past, right? But it's an interesting time we live in.
But I mean, like the thing is, like I'm sure everybody's kind of scrolled through their feed and felt like they're looking at the same picture over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Because like, because like people are feeding the algorithm. They're like, oh, like I know people like this photo before, so I'm just gonna post the same thing again. And like it's like over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, okay, like what about like creativity? Like what about people going outside of the box? You know what I mean? Like and like I said, like well, like you said, it is a mixed bag because I think you can still be successful. Obviously, like we've started to like reverse engineer some of that stuff to figure out what will perform well while still like putting our twist on it. So like you can make it work, but I'd also like to see something that you don't have to think about the algorithm at all. You just like kind of create what you want and you can still get it to your audience. And I think that's
Exactly.
the main problem right now. Like forget about like millions of people, just my like, my 2,000 followers, like they should be able to see, I should be able to get it to them. And that's not the way the social media works right now.
Yeah. And what you just said is such a big deal because I feel like every single creator, if they were given a choice with, okay, go in with this algorithmic.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Algorithm.
Yeah.
You then
Y'all know what I'm talking about. So going with this current system versus, okay, bro, the 20 people that liked my story last time, I want those 20 people guaranteed to see this next one.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like so. I think that's a big part that's missing right now. It's a big frustration because like I gave you an example. We work with a lot of these big names, like these people who are actually the ones where the algorithm is working really well for them, right? Yeah. That's not everybody. There's one person walking along that carpet, and there's thousands outside that want a social media or they want an experience, whatever you want to call it, where they can just connect with their people directly and have it be effective without them having to, like we were saying, hustle and like beg people to like watch this, right? Yeah. And if people are feeling it, like everybody like complains about the algorithm now. So obviously something isn't quite right.
Yeah. And hopefully, the big names get it right. The guys behind the scenes pulling the plugs, Yeah. You guys, write the code. Just go ahead and write the code. Make it happen. Okay. But yeah, listen, Johnny, I wouldn't feel right. It's already way too late on your end.
We're talking about let's do a rapid fire thing.
A rapid fire. Okay, yeah. Rapid fire. Let's say how much? 5 minute or 10 minute?
Yeah, sure. Do aim for 5. It'll be 10. But go.
Okay, cool. So, boom. What are you using the most to shoot right now?
Okay, that's a good question. So, okay, it's really my fault that we're going live. 'Cause it's like long information and everything. But basically, long story short, we're shooting with Sony right now. So, I hesitate to say this, but we're shooting with a Sony A1, which is like the flagship camera for Sony. And then FX3, but I hesitate to say that because those are expensive cameras, and you don't necessarily need to go straight to the expensive cameras to do this stuff. Like for example, remember that Valentino night that we were chatting about a little bit earlier? Nisha was shooting on the cheapest Sony full frame camera that they make, the Sony A7C, right? And she made content that was seen by 2 million people in one night. You know what I mean? So like,
Okay.
you're watching this and you're like, oh man, they're shooting with the flagship stuff. Of course, like their stuff looks like that. No, like really what it is we ended up seeing our needs. Like obviously we started getting more budget in as well. And we were like, okay, like what can make our job easier? And that's what made us kind of go down that path. But the bigger story, which I'll tell you in 15 seconds, is that we used to shoot with like these, we used to shoot with like a Blackmagic camera, Blackmagic cinema camera.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Stuff like that.
Blackmagic,
But like the reason I went down that path with like picking the gears, because like I wanted like the most cinematic thing ever. I wanted to build out all these rigs and that type of stuff. And there's a space for that, right? So like if you have time where you can set up a rig, you can pick it, then that camera and that type of setup will give you an amazing picture quality. And I miss it sometimes. But in our world, and one of the reasons why we were able to do what we do is because we're able to go into any situation, and we need that versatility that the Sony mirrorless lines give us, and other cameras do too. I'm not sponsored by Sony, so I don't need to talk but like, you know what I mean? Like the versatility is really the reason why we choose the Sony lineup right now.
All right, cool. Next one is what is it? Revolve? Is that the name of the company?
Yeah.
What can you tell me about them? Do you work with them? What's the relationship?
That's like one of our clients. So like a lot of people like contract us out. They're awesome. Like they're super, like I said, talking about relationships, like they're so hospitable to us and so kind to us, like their whole team. And what they are, for the people that don't know, is they're an online retailer for obviously fashion, like clothing, right? So like they have multiple brands like under their site. They also have like a sister site called Forward, which covers a lot of the luxury brands as well. They also have Revolve Man. There's probably other stuff that I'm not even aware of that they got going on, but it's just like this umbrella of like an online retailer essentially. But what they did that was really interesting is they were like one of the first people to see what was happening with influencer marketing and say, you know what, we're going to do our best to tap into that. So they developed all of these, again, relationships with influencers where they would be like, hey, like come out to our festival, come out to our trip here and there, and we're going to take care of you, right? And then these influencers would be like, that sounds like fun, I'm going to do that. And then they post about them, they post about their clothes, and like all of a sudden, like, you know, like they got all this reach, right? So shout out to Revolve for sure. Big thanks to them. Also shout out to New York and Company, another company that we work with, who carries Gabrielle Union's line, right? So that was one of the first ones that we started working with after Fashion Week, where that's a whole other story, but like they reached out and like we started shooting campaigns with Gab, like a lot of like the e-com stuff as well, like things that go on the website as well as their social media. But like there's so many companies, like I probably even shouldn't have gone down that road because there's lots of companies that we're working with that we're so appreciative of. But yeah, like those are a couple of them that we're working with right now.
All right, really good. And this is literally, I only have like 2 more minutes on that 5-minute spiel. But for this one is, how are you handling the intellectual property, like when you, in terms of like your rights to like the shots that you're taking and the business end of that? Because there's a whole different side of this where, you know, you have to manage the business side of your creation and your content.
I mean, like there's contracts that are involved in a lot of the work that we do for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like what I would say to people is that, like if you're gonna make up a contract, if you're gonna like worry about that stuff, just keep in mind that you have to enforce it as well, right? So like for me, like we put more of a emphasis on the relationship side of things, like with the people that we work with the companies that we work with, just to make sure that like we're on the same page as like good people. We're doing our best to do business in good faith, rather than being like, you know, jerks to each other just to nail down a contract, right? Which, you know, like I say, it's kind of a mixed bag. You got to play both sides, make sure you protect yourself, like to what you need to do with your contract. But what I'm saying is just don't forget about the human element. You know what I mean? Like contracts are there as a last resort. You want to be able to work through a lot of those like disagreements or even just communication in general at a human level first, just to make sure everybody's clear about what things are being used for, just like through talking and communicating, and then use that contract as a last resort. But don't try to put it above, or else you're gonna kill your relationship before you even get started.
All right. There we go. That was our rapid fire. Now, yeah, you got to go to sleep. This is the plug section. Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. Guys, also make sure you're checking the description caption of this, whether you're looking at this on Facebook, YouTube, or if you're listening wherever you listen to podcasts, you're going to see their handles. But go ahead and tell us as well, so the viewers and listeners know where to follow you.
Well, I mean, like, people listening, first and foremost, and all I'm gonna shout out is I Know the Pictures, because
Oh boy.
that's what you need to go follow. Make sure that you're checking out, because no, for real, like now that we're deep in this industry, like, it's really important that the sources of stories are diverse, right? And like that's how I see like I Know the taking over, like St. Lucia, man. Like we should be seeing so many stories from them. So like we need to put our support into like companies just like I Know that are doing that. You know, they're telling these stories that Hollywood might not even know about. You know, so like super shout out to that. Like we see that so much. Like I want to see your movies that freaking can. You know what I mean? And like things are moving in the right direction where people are starting to look. You know. But like we just got to keep pouring our support into the people who need the support, you know, like versus like the people who already have all the money, you know. So that's my plug. Shout out to I Know Pictures right there. Follow, like, share.
This guy, I'm gonna plug you. I'm gonna put their names while he was talking and saying all of that. You're probably seeing their names on the screen, where you can go follow them as well. And I really appreciate that, man. And that's why I pour in as much as I pour in. Yeah. Shameless plugs. Ribbons of Blue was actually screened, I believe, at the Cannes Film Festival a long time ago. So you guys, the quality wasn't that great. You know, we were just starting out, figuring some stuff out. So it's actually really bad. But you can see that for free right now on YouTube, on our page. I know the pictures, YouTube. Also, Shantae's World, guys, you know. Film and novel. We were selected for the International New York Film Festival. That's this coming month, and then we're also being screened in LA at the Caribbean Lens Film Festival. I'm gonna be headed out there, so you're gonna be seeing, you know,
tell us when
you guys gonna be there?
Maybe when is it?
It's in, I believe, June 19th, the weekend of the 19th.
Okay. We'll probably be in Paris, but everybody else that's in LA, y'all need to go check that out for sure. Go watch it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, the book release. We have a book launch in Brooklyn. That's gonna be on the 26th of this month. So you guys, you know, come on out. We're looking forward to seeing you. And yeah, that was my shameless plug. That was my whole section there. And Johnny, this episode, viewers and listeners, was actually for me. It was not for you. I was just chilling there talking to Johnny.
Yeah, we needed to catch up anyway, so we appreciate the audience for letting us do it in front of them.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I definitely need to pick your brain about stuff, you know. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff I could learn, some advice I could get as I work on the things that I'm working on, you know. And yeah, guys, Nisha, are you back there? Can you hear me?
She said, "Oh, Steve, no," because she's watching.
Okay. So, Nisha, thanks for letting me borrow Johnny tonight, and Johnny, thanks for joining me, man. And yeah, this has been really good. This is exactly what I expected it would be.
Having me again, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, guys, you're gonna see us in the week after next. You know, you know how this goes by now. You've been watching us. You know how this goes. So see you soon. Love you. Bye.